Wes Goldberg, happy Friday. Shaedon Sharpe's dunk, best dunk of the year, true or false?
It's true. My immediate reaction was true. That's the dunk of the year. And so a dunk that provides that sort of visceral reaction, if that's the visceral reaction you have in believing that that's the dunk of the year, then that's the dunk of the year. There's been a lot of them. That right now is the dunk of the year.
There's not one I felt this year that made me feel like that, so I think that's the answer. Like, I could not think of another one, and it could just be my brain is goop, but I could not think of another one that even came close.
Anything that happened before the Jimmy Butler trade and the Luka Doncic trade
Doesn't
and all
matter.
this stuff we spent so much time on, it feels like that was a different season at this point.
That's correct. All right, on today's show, 10 most important players for the NBA stretch run and looking ahead to the playoffs with those 10 players. Let's get into it. It's a Just Basketball show. Let's go.
Spectacular move by Michael Jordan. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
What is up, everyone? Chris Manning and Wes Goldberg here on the Just Basketball show. Today's episode is the 10 most important players for the stretch run of the NBA season. We each have come up with 5 plus some bonus ones. We'll go back and forth and assemble our list. If you haven't already, please subscribe, rate, review on your podcast platform of choice or on YouTube. Hit the notification bell. 5-star reviews only, please and thank you. And we are powered by BetMGM.
That's right. And if you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code JustBasketball. You'll get up to $1,500 in a first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here's how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android. Sign up using the code JustBasketball. Deposit at least $10. Place your first wager on any game, and you'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if the bet loses. Just make sure to use the bonus code JustBasketball when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
Wes, let's go into this list. Again, this is 10 most important players, 5 each. This is open to interpretation. How are you defining important? We could argue different things, or I think certainly when I look at my list, I have guys in different phases of their careers. I have guys that are different levels of star power. I'm curious to see how we both approach this. We're going in blind here.
Yeah, so I went pretty big picture with this. If you're not on a playoff team, you're not important to me.
Oh, agreed with that. Yeah, there was a cutoff. There was a hard cutoff.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
What do
If
you
you're
got?
not on a
Like-
playoff team, I have one that might be, but I'll probably try to leave that player off.
Okay.
So that's sort of how I did it in terms of their impact on the title race. Not necessarily are you on a team that can win the championship, but are you on a team that can make some noise in the playoffs and materially sort of change the trajectory of what this season and postseason will look like.
All right, so who's your first one?
I'm going Jamal Murray.
Okay, Jamal Murray also on my list. Was on there with a bullet.
This to me is the biggest X factor this season. Jamal Murray. Because right now, I think you have a top tier in the NBA of championship favorites. Boston, Oklahoma City, Cleveland, whatever order. Those are the three teams that are considered the favorites. If you pick against one of those teams, you're kind of crazy. And it kind of feels like you're just doing it for attention. There's another tier right below them that's just one team, and that's the Denver Nuggets. And then you could go whatever tiers and debate everything else after that. But that they are a tier by themselves in terms of outside looking in on the championship favorites. But we don't feel like they're right there with Boston, Oklahoma City, and Cleveland. But they're also a pretty clear notch above everybody else, mainly because they have the best player on the planet. That's the number one reason. But they've also been winning at a really high level. After starting the year 11-10, they're like 27-10 since then. And a big part of that is Russell Westbrook being more figuring out how to get involved, and their young players being better. Christian Brown just being flat out better than KCP at this point. He's been really good for them. But also over this last like 10 or 11 games when they've been really winning here, Jamal Murray has been playing out of his mind. Mm-hmm. And it just proves how important he is to this team. And he's the ultimate ceiling raiser from this group. Jokic is the floor. When you have Jokic, you're probably going to win 50 games. And you're probably always going to be an outside contender at the very least. But when you've Jamal Murray playing at this level, that's when you're a legitimate, bona fide championship favorite type. And if Jamal Murray can play at the level he's been playing at over these last 10 or 11 games, then the Nuggets are in that top tier. They are right there with Oklahoma City in the Western Conference. I have no question about it. Because you look back on their finals run in 2023, Jamal Murray averaging 26 points per game over these last 11 games. Murray's averaging 25 points per game, and they look borderline unbeatable, except for that game against the Lakers. Jokic is as good as he's ever been. Michael Porter Jr. is rounding into form here. They've got Aaron Gordon back. This team's got all the goods.
Who looks bulkier and is really playing like backup center, which has been a really interesting evolution for Aaron Gordon on the fringes there.
So if they've got this version of Jamal Murray being like the legitimate number 2 next to Jokic's number 1, that makes them a championship contender. And so but the whole thing with Jamal Murray is how long does it last? Can he keep it up? And can he keep doing it in the playoffs? Jamal Murray is historically a very good playoff player. So if he can play like this is something that can swing who wins the championship, or certainly who comes out of the Western Conference at the very least. February
has been Murray's best month. I mean, when you look at the splits, it's clearly been his best month, and it's been not just, okay, this is 1 month where he's running hot. Is this real? It's been a 3-month build to this. The last 3 months in a big picture sense, he's gotten statistically better every single month. This was coming off of, Wes, I think, a real dread about his performance for Team Canada in the summer.
Yeah.
With how he looked to start the year. Like, there was a lot of, I think, what is going on with Jamal Murray fear, I think, among us, I think among Nuggets fans, I think just general NBA fans. That was there, and it was entirely valid. This month, over 50% from the field. He's at 52.4% from 3. And again, I think it has built on the last couple of months. I wouldn't take this nearly as seriously as I am if it didn't have the last 2 months supporting this, right? Like, if it had just been he got hot, I would be like, okay, is this going to hold into March and April? We got December and January as proof of this. And I agree with you on the OKC point. They can beat OKC. It's possible. They have Jokic. They've done this before. Malone's a good coach, all that stuff. But it's not possible unless Murray's playing confident and is capable of going on an absolute heater. And the form he's in now, Murray can be the guy in a playoff series who can go on a heater and score with SGA and be the guy that puts them over the top. Like, that Murray is there now, and it wasn't a month ago, or it wasn't a couple months ago, rather.
Right. Even if you just look at it in the most basic kind of set of circumstances, Jokic and SGA, let's even call that a draw, even though I don't think it is. But SGA
Jokic is the best player. Yeah. I mean, Jokic is the best player in the league.
Yeah, but let's just like give SGA the benefit of the doubt and just call it a draw for the sake of this argument. That leaves Jamal Murray in competition with Jalen Williams or Chet Holmgren to be the second best player on the floor. And I don't know that he has to be head over heels better than those guys, but it has to be an argument, I think, for Denver to at least have a chance in a series against the Thunder. And so I have no question about what Jokic is going to provide. I have no questions about what SGA is going to provide. Jalen Williams quietly didn't have a great postseason last year. He's not on my list here, but I think if Jamal Murray is sort of the guy who can, if he steps up, narrows that gap between Denver and Oklahoma City.
Yeah. All right, let's go to mine. It's another point guard, and whereas I think the Nuggets could beat the Oklahoma City Thunder, I don't think the Memphis Grizzlies can beat the Oklahoma City Thunder in a playoff series, and it's somewhat because of what we've seen this year from my pick, and that's Ja Morant.
I thought you were going Scottie Pippen Jr. Okay.
Just Jalen Wells deep dive? Yeah. I mean, look, it's warranted for him. Morant has felt like a sports car in, like, first gear all year. He has felt shackled in a way, and I understand the intentionality of that, Wes. I understand, he missed all of last year. He's trying to grow into his game as he gets older. All of these things. But he's not the same player if he's not playing the way he was. He just is not.
Right.
Minutes are down per game. He's under 30 per game. His shots per game are down. It's close. It evens out It evens out okay per 100, but per game shots are down. Turnovers are up. And I think if you just look at him right now, and you look at where the Grizzlies are, they're going to have to fight for this 2 seed. They're even with Denver. The Lakers are coming. They have something to prove here. It's been a great year in Jackson Jr. year. They found something in Wells, all of this stuff. But this doesn't go anywhere unless Morant can be the electrifying to-be face of the league guy that we had before everything kind of went sideways for him during last season. That guy has not been there this year. That show-stopping guy just has not been there in the biggest way. Now, he just had this big finish to a game that was something of that. It was clutch. It was awesome stuff from him. That has not been the guy we've seen consistently this year, and unless that guy shows up over the last stretch of the season, I can't see the Grizzlies going any further than they have before and really being a threat out west.
Yeah, I think that's fair. I have the Grizzlies sort of on my outside looking in, like that next tier after Denver. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's where I have them as well.
And I think I mostly have them there because they're versatile and they can kind of get into so many different matchups, right? Like they have at least the personnel to do the thing that Minnesota did last year to Nikola Jokic, right? With the multiple bigs and the bodies that they could show him. I think you're right about Ja Morant. Do we consider Ja Morant a playoff player?
I don't think we can as of yet. I'm going to pull up his playoff numbers as of now, but when I think of...
So
okay, hit me with the numbers.
I think the reason we don't is because it's been a while. Because he's had the injuries and because last year was sort of a wash because he wasn't participating. But this is a guy who's averaged 27 points per game for his career in the playoffs. And he's done it on high shooting percentages. He's been really efficient. All of his rebounding and assist numbers go up. He's awesome in the playoffs. And he's done it against some of the top teams. We remember that he had a great series against Minnesota a few years ago. He was awesome against the Lakers the year that the Lakers went to the Western Conference Finals. That was a good Lakers team. He was great against the Warriors the year that the Warriors won the championship. I thought he was their toughest boss battle. And that was in the first round.
38 a game in that series. 38
he was unreal.
6. Yeah,
that's crazy. He was unreal.
Forgot about that.
He is one of these guys. And I think Anthony Edwards, this whole thing is so interesting with him because it kind of felt like he took what was Ja Morant's.
Yeah, he absolutely did. He absolutely did.
So, but that doesn't mean that Ja Morant can't take it back. And the Grizzlies are better than the Timberwolves this year, and I wonder if that's something that we see is, oh, Ja Morant's taken this back in terms of being the overconfident point guard, American point guard, leading a team further than maybe we thought they would go, and has all the star power and the high wattage and all of that anybody could ever ask for. So I think Ja Morant's a good call. He wasn't on my list, but it's a good pick.
Let me just ask this. In theory, let's say that guy is still there and you could get back to that. He's played 36 games so far this year. It's not a lot of games. Been pretty limited in terms, like he won't hit 65. Okay. He's averaging, again, 29.3 minutes a game. He wasn't like vastly above that, but he was above 30, up to 33.1 in his peak years. Is it for a guy that hasn't had that grinding workload to play what it'll need to do in the playoffs, on top of playing like 10 more minutes a game, is that like feasible for him to pull that out if he's been on this workload? I don't think I can think of a good analogy for a guy that would have to kind of add that workload that way for a playoff run. I don't know if it's
he's doing what Joel Embiid planned to do, right? Like that's sort of
and look, to his credit, like we're not like spending multiple weeks wondering if he needs to have like knee surgery or whatever is going on with Joel.
I'm less worried about it with Ja. He's young, he's healthy. I think you said it right in the beginning. They've had him parked in the garage for the most part. They take him out for weekend drives, and that's really it. But this guy can get on the highway. He'll be all right.
All right, I'm excited. I would like to be proven wrong. Fun Ja Morant means the league's a more fun place, so I would like to see it. Wes, who's your next one?
I'm going Jonathan Kuminga.
Okay, you're 2 for 2 on guys on my list. Yeah, Kuminga was.
All right, I'm gonna
it's just there. I mean,
dive on the next one then.
No, I'm gonna go sicko mode for my next one. Then is what I'm gonna do. Not really, but I'm gonna try.
This Kuminga thing is gonna be really interesting because the Warriors are rolling. Jimmy Butler's been an awesome fit. I think that was so obvious from the beginning that Jimmy Butler was going to be a great fit with the Warriors. High basketball IQ, perfectly complementary player next to Steph Curry. I think if you're going to be surprised by anything, it's just how quickly him and Draymond have meshed together. But then you think about how smart those guys are, and you probably shouldn't be all that surprised. But they're playing really small. Draymond's starting at the 5 right now. They kind of have to for spacing purposes. Jonathan Kuminga's not helping that. And Jonathan Kuminga has to play. And maybe so that's sort of where the crux of this being interesting and important is where does Kuminga fit into all of this? Because Kuminga was the guy that they were supposed to trade for a Jimmy Butler type. And then Jimmy Butler sunk his trade value to the point where they didn't have to do that anymore. It just cost them Andrew Wiggins and some other stuff. So now they have Kuminga there. They've got Jimmy, Steph, Draymond. They're playing this way. They're winning a lot of games. Vibes are really good. What does Kuminga think about all this? How does he feel? Because he was also the guy that they were trying to turn into the second option. And they were feeding him like he was a second option. And they were treating him like he was a second option. Well, he ain't the second option anymore. That's Jimmy. And so I think it'll be really interesting to see how Kuminga handles this. And Steve Kerr had a quote the other day where he says, I think it was Steve Kerr, talking about how Jonathan Kuminga could learn from Jimmy Butler. And I'm paraphrasing here, but basically saying so much that Jimmy Butler doesn't force it, and he plays winning basketball, and he's a team player, and all these things. All these things that they've been trying to get Jonathan Kuminga to do. I would like to remind everybody, though, that Jimmy Butler's more than 10 years older than Jonathan Kuminga. And he went through his phase of doing the Kuminga stuff. He wanted more responsibility in Chicago. He wanted to get paid like a max guy in Chicago. It didn't work. They traded him. Minnesota, same thing. Like, players have to go through that phase. And I don't think we should expect any young player to just skip that phase for the betterment of the team. I think that's kind of silly and childish, especially when these players are trying to sign their first major max contract of their career. And that, to me, I think is Kuminga's priority and frankly should be his priority. And maybe the Warriors would tell him, look, you play as part of the team and all this stuff, and we'll pay you like that. I don't know, man. I don't know the last great role player that just good vibes his way to $40 million a year.
Yeah.
So
this is a dance between two sides, and I don't really know what that looks like. Right? Like, the Warriors have every reason to be chasing the best version of themselves this year and next year, as long as they have Steph and Jimmy and Draymond. And like, the personality side of that has worked out swimmingly so far. Kuminga is a guy that it's like he should be this is a point in his career where like some selfishness is warranted, and almost I think the right path. You have to look out for you in a lot of ways. Can he be like optimal Jonathan Kuminga within this, or how do the Warriors, who've been awesome while he's been out, how do they adjust to fit him? Like, all of these are really difficult questions that are going to involve him also getting his money at the end of the season and dictate where your team's going, not just now, but next year. I think, Wes, you could argue, just in terms of the anyone we get to on this list, this is the one with the longest reaching tentacles. A lot of these I think I'm looking at for the next 3-4 months. This is the one that like is going to have reverberations like into next season and much less the summer. Like, what is Jonathan Kuminga's payday? Is there does this clearly just not work the next month? They have to find a way to sign and trade him in the summer. Like, I don't know. There's so many possibilities here, and this is clearly one of the ones because I think it just has such reverberation on an iconic player in Steph Curry and the team that made the Jimmy Butler trade at the deadline.
Yeah, and the one thing we know for sure is it's going to be clunky. Right?
Yeah.
Like, that's sort of like when I try to, if you wanted to describe the Jonathan Kuminga experience in Golden State, and it's not entirely his fault, but it's clunky, right? It's just always sort of barely fitting together and sort of working. And so we know that that's the only thing for sure, is it's going to be clunky. But having a guy like Jimmy Butler around to show him the ropes, I do think that, for the record, will be a good thing. You know,
Yeah.
I you talk to players that have played with Jimmy Butler. They love that guy. They freaking love that guy, man.
I had always felt from the outside looking into Miami, and again, you could answer this, I think clearly, but it always felt like Hero and Bam learned a lot, and maybe Hero more than Bam, but there was a lot of Jimmy rub-off onto those guys that was a net positive, even if it ended weird.
Yeah, and you can even go to guys like Max Strus and Caleb Martin and those guys too. I mean, every level of player can learn from what everybody calls the winning plays, the no nonsense, the no frills, this hyper efficient, just making the right read, making the right play, letting the game come to you. All that stuff is stuff that works perfectly well in Golden State.
I mean, where would
why Jimmy's
Kevin
thriving there, and it's what they've been trying to get Kuminga to do. And for the record, like, I do think Kuminga owes it to himself to go get that money, but like also a great way to, he will have to eventually take that step of doing the things that Jimmy and Draymond and Steph do so well. And so, I think it's fascinating. He can either learn from Jimmy Butler and have one more sort of teacher in the classroom to learn from, or he could go the other way and be like, where are my touches? And so I think it'll be really interesting to see how he approaches it.
The Warriors also just have upside here, right? It's like they're 8th in the West as we're recording this, 16 games back, and they're 5 back of the Lakers at the 5 seed. So they're not going to catch 5, but can they get to 6? They're only a game and a half back, or a game back of the Clippers right now, with even games played. They're with the Wolves and the Mavs and the Clippers for that 6 through 9 range right now. With the Kings there as well at 10. They're the team I would look at to say who's the best chance of making a jump. If you get the 6, even if like theoretically you end up with Denver at 3 instead of like Memphis or Houston or something, I think you would just, if you're them, take 6, get the week off, and then take your chances. I think that's where you go. So getting to 6 for them is in the cards, and that would be a big, big win for them from where they were even out a couple weeks ago, I think.
Can we pause here?
Mm-hmm.
I think.
All right, we'll come back in 3, 2, 1. All right, there's Kuminga. Wes, let's go East next, and I'm going to pick Cade Cunningham. Is he on your list?
No, but I have a different Piston on my list.
Ooh, I like this. The Pistons have a real shot at as high as the 4 seed. They're a game back. Cade also has an All-NBA case that is, I think, increasingly getting strong. This is a team pushing for the best version of itself this year. Bickerstaff's doing a good job. Cade is at the center of that. That guy plays so damn hard every night. He is vital to what they're doing. And I think them pushing for a 4 seed and him hitting All-NBA, those two things, if one of them happens, I think the other one it's going to happen in the same way. And if you just think about the momentum of how they just played Boston the other night compared to Indiana or compared to Milwaukee and where they're at, even like Orlando below them at 7, and Orlando is something of a mess at the moment. The Pistons just feel like one of the best stories in league this year, if not the best, and it's because of Cade. And I think if he keeps this up the rest of the year, and they get up to 4, maybe or 5, and they're a first-round series against one of those other teams, there's a chance they win a first-round series. There's a chance they're playing Cleveland around 2, and I think it would be because of Cade and him sustaining that level he's been at and getting himself on one of those 3 All-NBA teams.
So I did my 3 NBA teams this morning.
Okay.
Just to kind of gut check feel where we are with about 20+ games left. I had Cade second.
Do you traditionalize them, or do you keep them free flow?
No, I do the position list, the 5,
okay,
because that's, those are the rules now. So I had Cade on my second team.
Yeah,
he's been that good.
There.
There's no way to deny it. He makes the game look easy.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying to figure out who he reminds me of. So I watched that Pistons Celtics game this morning. I'm like, this guy just makes it look so easy. Who does he remind me of? And, he got a bunch of different kind of comps coming out of college and all these things. I don't know if any of those really hold. And this isn't like an exact comparison, but from a temperament standpoint, he kind of reminds me of the other guy on the floor that night, Jason Tatum. Where he's not going out there trying to hang 40 on you. This is not Anthony Edwards. This is not Ja Morant. This is not a guy that's just trying to take over the game. He's just going to make the right play on every possession. And a lot of times that's just him getting into that pull-up 3. It's a lot of times just him getting to the basket, just being 6'7" and getting it over a smaller guy. If he sees a small in front of him, he'll attack him. Why? Because it's the right basketball play. He's big, you're small. I'm going to go after you. But he sees all the pictures. He's ahead of the play all the time, and his decision making, man, is like rock solid, dude. Like. And that's, I think, maybe the most underrated part about Jason Tatum's game is you just feel really comfortable when the ball is in his hands. You're like, yeah, he'll probably make the right play here. And with Cade, you're starting to feel that way for a guy who's in his 4th year, who's young, right? Had 1 year that he basically missed for injury, and has no playoff experience. So I'm really interested to see what it looks like in the postseason, and if sort of the pressure cooker of all of that gets to him, or if he could go the other way and step up and really embrace that challenge and do all the things that have made him special this regular season in the playoffs. And I kind of suspect it'll be the latter. I think he will rise to the occasion. He just feels like that kind of guy. He doesn't get bothered by stuff. And it's been really fun to watch his ascension here, and it'll be really fun to watch him in a playoff series.
Cade has a rock solid All-NBA case. It is just there.
He's not going to fall lower than 3rd. There's no way. There's the names aren't there.
There's not the names. I think there's just, even if you did it like traditionally and like thought about it that way, and if it was old school, like there's not even like guards that are like going to have as many games and be as good as him. Wes, I want to do one quick exercise here, which is I want to go back to the 2021 NBA draft for a second and think about this for a second, because this is, I think, a really important draft as we're getting into some of these guys really ascending. Here's the top, and we've talked about 2 of them on the show now. Here's the top 5. Cade, Jalen Green, Evan Mobley, Scotty Barnes, Jalen Suggs. Would Cade still be your number one pick?
Yes.
Okay. I think it has to be. I think him and Mobley are the best two guys in that class, and I don't
No
want to hear.
question.
Like, I'm sorry. Like, Scottie Barnes should have won Rookie of the Year in the first place. And he would be like third or fourth in this draft now. He should.
Yeah. The big riser would be Alperen Şengün at 16. He'd be the big riser here. But Cade would be number one just because of the prototype that he is, right? I don't know that he's a better player in a vacuum than Evan Mobley, but
I don't think he is, but I think the on-ball thing probably gives him the advantage because it's just
he's
like
your lead ball handler with size and stuff. Like that's the prototype of that. That goes number one. That's you pick the quarterback over the defensive end every time just because of the value of the player or whatever. So
that might not be happening in this NFL. Abdul Carter might be going number one.
Yeah, it was probably the defensive end might be the one position. I probably got that wrong. You pick the quarterback over the wide receiver every time because the quarterback is just a more important
Mobley's like the left tackle. I think it's probably the example. It's like
right. Yeah, that's fine.
I don't know
works.
because it's not. Yeah,
who would you take three?
It's not Green. Tell you that. Franz.
It's Wagner, right?
It's Franz and then Scottie and then Sengun's probably 5.
Oof.
Right.
I got Wagner at 3. Are we sure Barnes at 4? I might still go Barnes at 4. I still really like Jalen Suggs. I know he's hurt. But we already mentioned my next player. This is a perfect transition.
I just want to also say Herb Jones also getting himself into the top 10 of this draft. I just want to say.
Love Herb Jones.
Like second round pick the draft.
James Bouknight, probably not. Jalen Green.
Not.
I have Jalen Green here.
I like that we got a Rocket here. I couldn't find one that I felt particularly compelled about, so I'm glad you got one.
He's their X factor, isn't he? I mean, he's the biggest swing factor on that team. When he's playing great, the Rockets look unstoppable. When he's closing games for them, he looks like the Rockets just look unstoppable. Now you look at his just box score stats; they're basically the same as last year, but it does feel like he's taken a little mini leap this season. Yeah. Just watching the games. First of all, defensively, he competes now, and I think that's huge. Ime wouldn't put him on the court if he wasn't competing. I'm not saying he's a good defender, but he's at least out there trying, and I think that's a really big deal for them. And when he's got that pull-up 3 going, and when he's getting to the basket, more importantly, it just sort of changes all of the geometry and the way that the Rockets play. That's what he does. And when you think about the reason nobody's going to pick the Rockets to come out of the Western Conference, because nobody is, right? And I mean no disrespect to you, nobody's going to pick them.
Like literally everyone is. Every time you hear them mention the really fun season, Amen Thompson is Jesus Christ Reborn. Mm-hmm. I'm a little worried about Sengun is one of the things I keep hearing. There's everyone's just kind of like Fred VanVleet's really important to this team, and also they're not winning in the first round. It's like off the other thing that you hear. I mean, they're not winning the title.
They could win a first round. It depends on where the seeding falls.
Yeah,
but if they make noise in the playoffs, it will be because Jalen Green is awesome. I basically trust everybody else to do their thing. I'm not as worried about Şengün getting cantered in the playoffs as some people are. I think you get attacked, but that Jabari Smith Jr. came in the other night against Giannis and did a pretty good job. So they have options if the Şengün thing doesn't work out. If Jalen Green can't be a great scorer, the only other option that they really have in terms of perimeter scoring is Amen Thompson.
Amen Thompson, yeah.
And I don't know. I don't know that I trust Amen Thompson to be a 20-point per game scorer in the playoffs. I love Amen Thompson, but he's not that guy yet.
It's not yet. Even though, I
think one day he'll be there. But
I love watching teams dare him to shoot. By the way, like when teams are just like daring Amen Thompson shooting, he just still does it, and it's like that's a good sign even when he's missing. Mm-hmm. Wes, I think this is another one that this extends into what the Rockets are going to be going forward. I think everyone in their tangentially interested NBA friends or family members are looking at the Rockets as probably the team to do something really aggressive this summer. Jalen Green, you would think, would factor into that, or one of him or Sengun might need to factor into that for money purposes. If he has like a really good stretch run of the year, does that make them more likely to hold on to him, and does he prove himself to some way? His contract was an extension that was something of a prove-it deal. This was kind of like a prove-it or put-up or shut-up kind of year for him in the future plans of the Rockets. So if he like fizzles out, he might be like I would think he's playing on a different team come this
Or
time.
If he balls out. That was sort of my next point here.
Yeah.
the reason why he's so important is because he's not just important to Houston. He's important to every other team that has an older superstar that might be looking to shake things up this summer. Because he could be, is he going to be the centerpiece of a deal? Or are you going to be paying us to get off this contract?
Yeah. Excited for Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, and Jalen Green to be playing together.
Maybe just Jalen Green and Devin Booker. Or I'm sorry, Jalen Green and Bradley Beal.
No one deserves that. No one in their right mind deserves that.
And Royce O'Neal.
Shout out, man, Ishbia. All right, before we get to our next one, got to tell you about our friends at Homage. Homage is the ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company with NBA and WNBA licenses. They use its vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and popular culture. Use the link below to make your purchase and support the Just Basketball Show. A lot of great WWE, NBA, WNBA merch over there. MLB season's coming around the corner. The starter jackets are back. Go check them out. Use our link below. Wes, I'm going to go role player-y here for my next one, and I'm taking DeAndre Hunter. I think if you look at the Cavs, we know what they are. Aside from Ty Jerome, just like, I don't know if this is like real what he's doing, but I'm fascinated by it. If someone overpays Ty Jerome this summer, by the way, I want to be on the record now and saying it's probably a mistake to do so, even though he's having a great year. If someone gives him like the full mid level, I think that's actually a bad idea. He's like, oh, this is a little bit too much of a heater vibes to me. DeAndre Hunter is not starting for the Cavs as of yet, and I don't know if he will. They put it out there through local media and stuff that this was like a data-driven decision to have Max Strus continue to start. When I read these stories and these quotes, my brain went west. It's like, okay, but I understand you're making a data argument in favor of Strus, but you also don't have any data with Hunter to compare to for your specific situation. So, like, I don't really understand how that's supposed to work. But I think the Cavs, barring a massive collapse, are going to have this control over the 1 seed. Hunter becomes the wild card to me in that they're going to need him to beat Boston. And I think he's going to need to play more minutes against Boston than Strus would play if they're going to win that series. He's going to be vital for what they're going to do. His integration has to go well. You have to get him moving in the right direction. And I think ultimately you have to just start him. So does that happen? When does it happen? If it does, how does he integrate with all of this? What do they find the right lineup combinations with him? Like, getting a trade in season for him is I think a pretty solid move just because it's pretty much plug and play with him in a lot of ways. But it is about finding the right ways to use him in the right minute structure for him. And I do ultimately just think starting that guy is going to make sense. Friday, Cavs Boston, last time in the regular season, the Hunter part of that is, to me, the most interesting part of that game of how do they use Hunter in that matchup? What does it look like? Does he close? Does he get more minutes than Strus? I think he just becomes like the role player for that team that we need to figure out what it's going to look like if the Cavs are going to be able to actually beat Boston come playoff time.
Yeah, it was funny when Cleveland pulled off the trade for DeAndre Hunter. It was only like a week and a half after the Hawks, Hunter's previous team, played the Celtics, and DeAndre Hunter spent most of his time guarding Tatum and Jaylen Brown.
Yeah.
It's like, yep, we could see how you did the math there. We see where the string lines up with the push pins. This is definitely a homer pick by you.
Yeah, it is.
I didn't have him on my list.
It's fine.
But I appreciate it, right? I understand where you're coming from. This is more, if we had done this exercise right before the playoffs started, I'd see your point.
Yeah.
But we still have like 2 more months to go of regular season basketball, and frankly, DeAndre.
I'm going to be watching so many Cavs games, Wes, at this match. Like, I'm going to Cavs Blazers on Sunday, okay?
Hey, I mean, Shaedon Sharpe, why not? You might be in for a treat, dude.
I hope Shaedon Sharpe trying to junk on Jared Allen is worth the price of my ticket alone, you know?
Well, you got to get it to go. Like, you want the highlight there. You want to be there. You want to hear the oohs and ahs and the sounds of all that. But then you also want Cleveland to just take care of business and win by 23 points.
Yeah. The Hunter, I have one guy that probably should have made my list instead of Hunter that's on one of the 3 best teams in the league. I just couldn't find a good Boston one. Unless you have one. I couldn't find one that I was really moved by. No. The Thunder one.
Shireman got in the game the other day.
By the way, we should have mentioned this with the Cade thing and the Pistons a little bit. I think Malik Beasley should be like closer to Peyton Pritchard in the odds for 6th man of the year.
Yeah, I thought about that too, right? I was kind of watching Pistons Celtics as the 6th man of the year bowl.
Yeah.
It's still got to be Pritchard. I see where you're coming from. Like you're
The
right,
numbers,
but
the
then
numbers
you
are
think about
just
it,
obscene.
yeah,
it's,
you
it's
think about it, there's
insane.
no reason not to vote for Peyton Pritchard. He is essential to that team. The way I put it is like when you're watching the Celtics fans seem relieved when Peyton Pritchard comes in. Like, oh my
Yeah.
God, finally! Like we're gonna make a three now, and that's a really big deal for them, especially because they're a championship favorite and the Pistons aren't. My
There's
next
my
player
homer
here.
pick. I got my homer pick out of the way. What's your one?
So I've got two more picks here.
Yeah.
Looking at my board.
And we,
All right,
I should,
I'm going Paolo Banchero /
oh,
Franz Wagner, but I'm
Okay,
really
I
picking
didn't-
Banchero here.
okay.
This
I didn't
is-
have these guys on my list, so I'm glad we got some Magic rep here.
So it's been a rough year for the Magic. It was such a great start for them, and then just too many oblique injuries, and Jalen Suggs has missed. It's going on 14, 15 games now, I think. But so they've been missing just their top three guys for most of the season. So we haven't really gotten a good read on who the Orlando Magic are this year. And the way that Paolo came out, just guns blazing. I mean, he looked like one of the best 10 players one of the best 5 scorers on the planet the first week of the season before he got hurt. And that's not even an exaggeration. And
No,
since
he's
he's
great.
come back, he's not been that. Since he's come back, he's averaging 21.5 or 21.6 points per game on 40% shooting. He's been bad. He's been bad. He's been inefficient, high volume, not moving the ball well, not moving around the floor as well as you'd like. He looked fast and strong that first week, and he hasn't looked like that since. And now, like Franz Wagner, when he's been out there, he's basically looked like Franz Wagner the entire time. This borderline all-star guy who probably only didn't make it because of the games played. This is the first time that we could say, it's always been a little bit of a debate, and you talk to people in Orlando, and they're like, Wagner might be better than Banchero. This is the first season where you could say Wagner has thoroughly outplayed Banchero. He has been Orlando's best player this season. And so I look at Banchero and I say, well, can you even the scales a little bit over these next 2 months? Because everything that the Magic do, this is a lost year for the most part. But these next 2 years, they're going to try to discover as much as they can about themselves. And whether or not, like if Wagner ends up being better and more essential to that team than Banchero, that could lead to a lot of different, interesting, dramatic questions. And I don't think that they would answer those questions necessarily this summer, but they would have them. Well, I don't think that they had him before. So Banchero, to me, that's a player to watch.
20th in offense on the year for Orlando, which is just nasty, nasty work.
That's near the bottom, I think.
That's pretty low. Breaking news. When you look at them in the East-West, they're 7th right now, 20 games back of the top seed, half a game ahead of the Heat, who are 8th, a game and a half ahead of the Hawks. Let's just say they end up as the 7th, like as the 7th seed. Like they get it, they'll win. They're probably going to be in the play-in. Say they advance out of it. Which of the top seeds would you be more interested in them seeing play in the first round? Cleveland or Boston?
I guess Cleveland, just because I think Boston would be a 4-game sweep, and I just don't think that anything interesting would come out of it. And I think Cleveland would win probably also in 4 games, but
Yeah.
I think it would. I wouldn't. You know what? Both of those would not be very interesting. But I guess by default I'd say Cleveland.
So I guess the better way to ask that question then is, let's say the Heat or the other team. Which series do you want to more cover, the Heat Cavs or Heat Celtics?
Give me Heat Cavs, because I did Heat Celtics in the first round last year, and that was a 5-game easy series. So I don't need to Groundhog Day that one.
I personally, Kevin Love back in Cleveland for a playoff thing would be like
There you
worth it all. Like
Sold.
There's a moment we figured it. All right, Orlando's a good call. All right, Wes, we got 3 more to go. I've got 2, you have got 1, and my next one is we have to go into the bonus section now. And I'm gonna go with a guy that I think I probably should have done instead of Hunter, but we're just gonna get in that, and that's Chet Holmgren. Chet Holmgren is the ceiling raiser for the Thunder. This team has already been he's been like not like much of a frontline guy for them this year, and they're still 47-11 and 9 games up on the 2 seed. Like this team is still fucking ridiculous with an insane defense. But that guy is a rim protector, that he's going to win a Defensive Player of the Year of the award one year. Like, it's going to happen. He is that good. Even in a league where there's Wembanyama and Mobley and Jaren Jackson and Dyson Daniels and all these guys, like, he is going to win one of those awards in his career at some point. I would throw money on that. He's that good. Does he come around as an offensive player, get in a rhythm, feel fully healthy, just feel fully like where we kind of left off last year before the injuries derailed this year? If he is that guy come playoff time, and him and Hartenstein, the chemistry gets right, all of that gets figured out, and that position in general for OKC gets sorted, they're going to be favorites for the title, even maybe more so than they already now. Like, that team will be an absolute rip-roaring just monster that can throw everything at you. Chet is the key that I think can unlock their highest ceiling, and they're already butting up against a really, really high ceiling and playing incredibly well, but Chet takes them from like a 9 to like a 9.7. Like, he could be that vital to how good this team could be in the playoffs.
He's the guy. Well, Chet Holmgren combined with Hartenstein, that's the formula for beating Jokic.
Yeah.
And this is what Minnesota did a couple of years ago when they traded for Gobert. They paired Gobert with Cat, directly looking at Jokic and saying, the West goes through that guy. We need something to beat him. And the Nuggets right now are second in the West. They're not the Thunder. The Thunder have dominated the Western Conference all season. Their net ratings, they're on pace for all these things. Like, they're historically great, and you can look at all the metrics and all that stuff's out there. But to a degree, the Western Conference still goes through Nikola Jokic. He's the best player in the league. You're going to have to play him if you're going to win the championship. So, yeah, I think you need to have an answer for that guy. And it's funny, Minnesota has to trade Karl-Anthony Towns because of finances and ownership and blah, blah, blah. But you look at two teams that I think are uniquely positioned, and it's Oklahoma City, I think, is the best position to match up with Jokic because they have Chet and Hartenstein. And then I think, Memphis, I think they draft Zach Edey for the same reason. Mm-hmm. And then you've got, obviously, San Antonio, Victor Wembanyama in the future, but not this season, obviously. So, yeah, I think I think you're right about Chet Holmgren. And what does his health look like is going to be the main thing. Because it's one thing for him to be out there every other game, but in the playoffs, when it's grinding and it's more physical, is he going to be ready to play 2 games in 3 nights with that level of physicality in the playoffs against Nikola Jokic, perhaps? Like, that's going to be a big question. If he is out there, what does he look like in the 5th game of a series, in the 6th game of a series? So it's a good call. It's a good call.
He is vital to them. Like, when this team is going to be at their best, I firmly believe he's their second best player, and he's not there yet. And you don't think we'll be there this year, but can he get close? And even just if it's what you're talking about, the physicality of the playing a bunch of games, if that's against Denver in the Western Conference Finals, I think him going into deep water against Jokic in that scenario would be one of the 3 things I'm most interested in seeing in the playoffs. Like, I think it would be that interesting just to see him at this age get pushed in that way for a team that has the regular season success that OKC does. All right, who's your last one?
Again, looking at my board here, trying to just find a team or a kind of a subject matter that we haven't talked about. Can't go wrong with the Lakers. I've got not Luka Doncic. I've got Rui Hachimura. I went.
Oh, I had Austin Reeves on my list. That was the guy on my long list.
Yeah, so I guess we could just sort of just say, we know what we're getting from LeBron. We know what we're getting from Luka. What's the next guy? And Austin Reeves is great. It would be a great pick. It is a great pick, but he's more additive, right? Like, he's sort of bonus offense, where Hachimura is suddenly, after the Mark Williams trade fell through, essential, right, to this team. And what he's been doing defensively has been awesome, by the way. Like, he's playing the 5. He's stretchy. He's a little switchy, and he's stronger than I thought he was. Like, he's handling centers. And he looks big out there. I think he's maybe grown an inch or 2 since he got into the league. But he looks big. He looks strong. Not a guy you think of as a 5, but then you're looking at I'm watching him play. I'm like, yeah, he could be a 5. Why not? There's plenty of 5s who are 6'10". So I think he's held up pretty well on that end. He's not going to be Anthony Davis there, obviously. but they're gonna need some muscle at that spot. And I'm call me crazy. I don't trust Jackson Hayes. So
whoa. Calm down, Wes. Calm down. Okay, coming in with the spicy takes at minute 45.
I don't know that I trust Hachimura as a center, but I trust him a little bit more than Hayes. And so when they go small and it's clicking and it's working, it just gives them a really unique look. And then just sort of zooming out on the Lakers overall, they do have an obvious hole at center, which is why we're even talking about Rui Hachimura here. But they have a lot of length at basically every other position, right? Like Jared Vanderbilt coming back, he's made some really nice energy plays since getting back into the rotation from injury. And they've just got length all over the floor, and I think Hachimura is a big part of that. And that kind of covers up from the lack of size at that 5 spot. They're sort of overcompensating at all the other positions. And when you have like all of these arms kind of taking those step or twos into the paint when guys are driving and stuff like that, that's how you mitigate the weakness that you obviously have in your roster. Hachimura might be more important in doing that than anybody else on the team, so I have him here.
Yeah, and look, if you look at how they played the Nuggets in that win recently, which was snapped the losing streak for them against Denver, notably no AD, it was just like they hounded him with all these big wings, Hachimura included. Like he's going to have a defensive role on top of the offensive stuff. So I think Hachimura is a great shot. Reeves, I thought, okay, additive offense. He's playing with insane confidence. Does like that offense just become like just ridiculous because of him as much, not as much as Luka and LeBron, but because he's adding off of those guys and just settles in. All right, so my last one. Thought about Giannis, Wes, for this, just because I think that what does he have to offer? But I'm going to go with Kyrie for my last one, because I think this is another All NBA level guy. He's having a really good year, and he's like the one. I don't think Dallas is going anywhere big this season, but in terms of teams like fighting for a playoff position, he is the thing keeping them afloat right now. AD's hurt. They traded Luka. They don't have Lively, Gafford. Like they're banged up. The vibes are weird. The one thing keeping them afloat is Kyrie Irving. That is the thing keeping the Dallas Mavericks from totally falling off of the face of the earth here. And look, they have a good situation as far as staying in the play-in right now. I don't like their chances at all of getting out of the play-in. But they're well ahead of the Suns, who are 11th right now. They're 3.5 up on the Suns. But they're 5-5 in their last 10. They've lost 2 in a row. Kyrie's going to have to be magical, particularly while AD is out. And we don't know exactly what that's going to look like, for them to hold this up and for them to stay in that race and at least like salvage something of this season, at least be able to say like, hey, look, like we know that AD was hurt. Kyrie was great. We believe in this duo next year. That's on Kyrie's shoulders. And it's such an interesting place for him at this phase of his career after what his reputation, took a hit for all the, I think, valid and maybe some unfair reasons kind of mixed in there. This is such an interesting place for him to be at this point in his career and his basketball life. And it's all on him on that franchise now, which is not a thing you ever would have expected.
And he'll be a free agent this summer. And so he's kind of got Dallas bent over a barrel anyway in terms of, well, you got to pay me. You just traded the other only guy that can score on this team. So you better do it for me. Yeah, do you think with a very good Kyrie Irving and a healthy and very good Anthony Davis, if you get Anthony Davis playing the way that he's been playing this season when he's out there, and Kyrie playing the way he's played over the last 10 games, which has been one of the best scorers in the league, what's Dallas's ceiling then?
Second round, probably. Like I could see them beating Memphis or Houston or like the Clippers. I wouldn't pick them against OKC or Denver or the Lakers. I don't think them, and I don't think I'd pick them against the Warriors either.
Yeah, so that's the Warriors. I mean, Anthony Davis has kind of got their number lately, but
yeah, but it's like Jimmy. It's just like
it's a different Warriors, and it's a different
it's a different Warriors, and it's like I also just when it comes down to it, if I'm saying okay, if it's a close series, I'm probably just going to pick the team with Steph on it in that case.
Yeah. I just don't know that it would be a close series, but I could be wrong. Yeah, that's I couldn't talk. I looked at Dallas and I thought about Kyrie and I just couldn't put him on my list. I was like, what does it really matter anyway?
That was as low as I could go in this standing because everyone else is a little, 6 and above.
So that's it, right? 5-5.
Yeah. Do you have any other honorable mentions? My only other one was Giannis and Austin Reeves, who we touched on briefly.
Giannis is a good one to watch, but Giannis is, and I think I know why you left him off, is just because this season really does matter for him. But we kind of know what it's going to look like, and he's probably the most important player other than Kevin Durant to watch this summer.
Yeah.
But
and I wasn't going to be like, hey, Kyle Kuzma was one of the 10 most interesting players for the stretch run of the NBA season. You know, like I couldn't get myself into that place.
so I did have Kyle Kuzma on my
Oh,
list.
okay, well, tough look.
But I left him off. As I was looking at my big board here, he was near the bottom of my list. The other, I teased it, so I might as well just say it. The other Piston I had was Asar Thompson. But if you want to hear more about Asar Thompson, literally listen to any other NBA podcast, and you can hear plenty about him.
The Tom Sai is a friend called them, which I love. They're taking over the world right now, man. Vindication of overtime elite.
Shout out to Josh Giddey. Did the Bulls do the right thing in clearing the way for Josh Giddey to cook? He's been awesome, and so we don't have to spend a lot of time on it. I just want a little 30-second elevator pitch. That's it. Giddey's been really good. If you find yourself for some reason watching a Chicago Bulls game, you might actually have a good time watching them.
Yeah. Oof. All right, Wes, let's finish with the Tankathon spin.
I always forget that we do this.
That's good. I'm trying to keep on your toes.
It's a surprise for me, just like it is for the audience. Actually, the audience at this point probably knows it's coming, and I don't.
I mean, hopefully, when new listeners come in, they are surprised. And I like getting weird results. It's really what I'm hoping for with all of this. Like, I don't want normal lottery results into this because we got so long till the draft. Okay, this one's okay. This one's okay. It's actually not great. We're just gonna stick. We got to stick with it. One click. That's the rules. Number 5, the Wizards. So they don't get Cooper Flag, which is good. I have a list of teams, Wes. I just want to be clear that I don't want Cooper Flag to be on, which is me being an absolute hater. But I have a list. And it's the Utah Jazz, it's the Washington Wizards, and it's the Charlotte Hornets. Keep Cooper Flag away from those teams.
Yep, that's fair. And the Sixers.
Six. Boy. Good for Paul George on podcasting, by the way. New Orleans number 4. Charlotte 3. Brooklyn, the mighty Brooklyn Nets at 2, and the Utah Jazz at 1.
So let's say Cooper Flag decides to stay another year.
He's like, I don't want to live in Utah. I'm not Kyle Flipowski.
Who does Charlotte take at number 1 then?
You mean Utah?
Or, I'm sorry, Utah. Who does Utah take at number 1? Yeah.
Probably Dylan Harper. It seemed like I was reading Rafael Barlow's newsletter, and it reads like Dylan Harper is having a better, more like solid year than Ace Bailey's had.
Who's the one that keeps getting compared? Dylan Harper is like the Tracy McGrady one, or is Ace Bailey the Tracy McGrady one?
Yeah, Dylan Harper's the point guard, shooting guard. Ace Bailey's like the big forward.
So Ace Bailey is like the scoring forward. Dylan Harper's got like a step back kind of James Harden like game to this thing going, right? Yeah, I think that's probably the right call. Yeah, you probably want the ball handler there, even though Utah, they have been starving for a decent wing basically since Gordon Hayward left.
Since Gordon Hayward, they have not had a wing. I mean, that was like the whole issue with the Mitchell Gobert era, was like they didn't have a wing to really guard the. And if you
think about Ainge's MO, he usually goes with the wing over the guard. Harper is 6'6", so it's not like he's small. But Bailey being 6'9", 6'10", I could see Danny Ainge going that way.
All right, lock it in. We're gonna end there. Wes, should we do this once a week instead of 2 in terms of the Tankathon? Maybe just once. It's too much.
It's probably better, and you know what? It'll keep me guessing because
now
I'm used to it, and now it's not gonna happen next, and then I'm gonna forget about it, and then next week I'll be like, oh yeah.
I'm not gonna tell you what day we're doing it on. I'm just gonna do it one day a week, and I'm not gonna tell you. I'm just gonna be like, Wes, it's time for Tankathon, and you're gonna be like,
I'll know pretty. As soon as we do one episode, I'll know which one it is. But that's fine. It's a good plan.
It's element of surprise not coming there. All right, we're gonna end there. Back next week. Next week we're gonna get into Cavs Celtics from Friday and the other NBA takery. Please subscribe, rate, review. Thanks everyone for listening. This has been the Just Basketball Show for Friday, February 28th. We'll talk to you in March. Have a good weekend.